Okay.
So my name is Jason Shim. I serve as the Associate Director of Digital Strategy and Alumni Relations for an organization called Pathways to Education Canada. And we help youth living in low-income communities to graduate from high school. So I have been immersed in AdWords for quite some time. We'll chat a bit more about that. But yeah, I love all things technology, and I love working in the space for technology and nonprofits.
My name is Mark Hallman. I'm the president of Evergreen Digital Marketing. As the name implies, it's website development, analytics, reporting, and measurement. But primarily our focus is Google Adwords, the Google Adwords program for businesses, but also Google Ad grants for nonprofits. And I've been in this space for roughly a decade now, about 7 years, and we'll talk a bit more about it. But Jason first, so this has a nice synergy coming back to here together today.
Yeah. So I just wanted to quick check. Everyone can hear us okay?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to share our screen now for the presentation. I'm just going to find the piece here. I think it is not popping up here. Let's find that there.
Feedback there.
Oh, desktop one. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I'll share that.
Yes.
Okay, everyone can see that. And everyone can still see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we're just going to jump straight into our, I guess, our origin story. So we started off working at the same organization about, I guess, going on 8 years ago.
About 8 years ago.
And you know, I'd recently discovered after going to the nonprofit technology conference, you know, learned about AdWords and wanted to implement it internally. And so I popped, you know, upstairs where Mark was. So I was working on the youth-facing program, and Mark was doing employee assistance programs and business development in that area. And yeah, that began a long kind of, I guess, 8-year journey about learning more about AdWords. So when we heard earlier, you know, trying AdWords by, you know, trial and error, you know, that's completely something we can very much relate to, because that was pretty much our beginning.
Yeah.
And we'll share with you some of the resources that we found to be most useful along the way, as well as some case studies and cautionary tales of, you know, what to do, what not to do, and those sorts of things. So for those of you who are completely new to AdWords, what it is essentially $10,000 a month of in-kind revenue from Google to use the search ads that appear when you are searching on Google. So we'll show you examples of what that looks like, but pretty much every time you're looking for something, this will help you insert, you know, at the right place at the right time, an ad that will help you engage supporters or people that may benefit from your organization.
So we'll do this a little bit backwards here. We're going to jump right into our 4 keys to success, and they're really simple. The 4 keys are read, 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 and practice. And this is literally how Jason and I both cut our teeth in AdWords. There's a lot of blogs, which we'll allude to later. There's a lot of books we've read. But basically, reading documentation and getting our hands into the accounts and working on it is how we learned it. Hopefully today's presentation will jump you ahead of that and give you some insights so you're not stuck back to the beginning like we were.
So if you are currently, you know, a nonprofit marketer, fundraiser, membership manager, you know, any of the above, working in nonprofit, generally, you know, Google AdWords grant will help your organization. You know, we have yet to meet an organization for which the Google AdWords grant has done absolutely nothing for. You know, at the very least, it will help drive, you know, some traffic towards your site. And it's not just regular traffic, it's qualified traffic. So when you configure, you know, AdWords, what you're doing is you're helping match people with what they're looking for with your organization. It's also fun professional development, although, you know, my idea of fun is, you know, doing stuff like AdWords, so, you know, your mileage may vary on that, but it is a, you know, a pretty fun thing. You know, once you start diving into it and seeing the results come in, you know, it can be a really fun kind of professional development piece to explore, and it's also a transferable skill. it's hard to go anywhere with regards to any sort of digital marketing without encountering online advertising. So, a lot of the basics that you learn for doing AdWords also readily apply for, when we were later learning Facebook advertising. A lot of that transfers over because, how you set up a campaign, how you analyze the results are very similar and transferable. So in terms of what to expect, we'll give you a quick current state of the world overview, as well as a reality check and some warnings about what AdWords can and cannot do. Mark will take you through the basics of building a campaign and, more importantly, the testing and optimization of those campaigns so you keep on improving over time. And then last of all, we're going to talk about sustainability and how do you keep the ball rolling, understanding that as in many nonprofit contexts, that AdWords is just one small sliver of the assorted other things that fills our day-to-day plates.
So what do people do when they need help? Realistically, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we'd look at phone books or talk to our neighbors. Now we turn to Google. This number is a little bit old, but a few years ago, basically 80% of people use Google as their primary search engine. A lot of what we're talking about here will also apply to Bing ads, but we talk about Google because the nonprofit program, and it's also where people are. So Jason's going to go through a little bit about what kind of things people are searching for in our communities.
So what are people searching for in your community? One thing that you can check out is Google Autofill. So, if you ever type in, a few words into Google and see what pops in there, this is what, at least in Toronto, when we type in, where can I find help? The following results kind of pop up in terms of, what a volume, what people are searching for. So where can I find help to pay my rent? Where can I find help with medical bills, for depression, for mental illness? Where can I find help getting a job? And there are, billions of searches that take place every day. And what Google AdWords can do is, help you get in front of these people who are in need, who are looking for help, with these, very important challenges. So your organization does great work, but can people find you? And if not, here's what could happen. Imagine if someone is searching adopt a kitten, and you may not be on the first page, or you haven't properly configured your AdWords. They may be actually missing out on an opportunity to adopt a kitten if you are running like an animal shelter. So this is a kind of simplistic kind of example, but we've seen some very direct results from implementation of AdWords where when people are searching for tutoring opportunities in our local community, after implementing AdWords, we receive feedback from our programs that their phone volumes increased in terms of people contacting them for more information about tutoring as well. So these are the kinds of things that AdWords can help connect with. However, they all you need to keep in mind a certain reality check piece about it. This is something that nobody ever searches for. What AdWords is not great at doing is getting donations. So once you run an AdWords campaign, people are not going to land on your webpage and suddenly donations are going to go through the roof, because no one ever searches, I have too much money, which charity should I give it to? If you know anyone who would search that, please send them my way as well. But that's one thing to keep in mind, that you need to be very particular about what is the goal of when implementing AdWords, and understanding your audiences and what they actually search for. And we'll talk more about that as the presentation goes on. So one thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to search engines like Google, everyone is thinking about themselves, just like you. So when people are searching things like I have too, the autofill is I have too much stuff, I have too many clothes, I have too much homework. These are kind of more day-to-day concerns that people have, that there may be a possibility that perhaps you are connected with a nonprofit that could help people with any of these sorts of things. So how can you help? Well, first up, you get access to the Google AdWords program through Google for Nonprofits. So if you haven't already signed up for it, this is the way through. And this is something that you apply for directly with Google, and you get access to a whole suite of tools, and that will give you access to the Google Ad Grants.
So the next piece here, I'm actually walking you through building an actual AdWords campaign. And this is a little bit of the nuts and bolts behind what our process we're looking for. But the first steps would be to understand this more than just the ads. And here's an example of an ad we have for Hospice of Waterloo Region up here in Kitchener, actually, where I live. This says Hospice of Waterloo Region, our tagline is comfort, care, and support. And it's talking about providing programs and services to people affected by life-threatening illness. But before we get there, we have to look at what are we trying to achieve. And to have a good account structure, a campaign structure, we look at a number of things. We have our account, and that's kind of our top level. Below that, we have our different campaigns. And campaigns get into our regional settings. So for Hospice of Waterloo Region, we don't go into Toronto. We don't go into the US or other parts of Canada. So we can set our targeting goals there. And the ad groups below that get into more of our tightly themed groups of keywords and search terms. So that's kind of how we set the account up in a nice linear fashion. By doing that, it's really going to help you, first and foremost, keep organized. Without having this structure in place, it's easy to kind of lose your way and not know where your keywords are and what you're trying to achieve. It allows you a certain level of consistency, but also helps you focus your targeting. So by having campaigns that are focused regionally, we know that if we're looking for a tight regional campaign, we have that, which might look different than our broader statewide or province-wide or potentially North America-wide ads. So having this in place helps us kind of keep organized. And by doing this, it also helps us replicate our success. Understanding what works and being able to dial it down to ad group level allows us to break things out in a manner that works. We're in Canada, so we used a hockey net. Jason and I had this debate, but I know in Florida there's a couple NHL teams, so we thought we'd keep the hockey net here and it'd be relevant. You still understand what we're doing here. But the first step for us is always defining our goals. And a couple of different goals could be awareness of our organization, which is totally fine. That could be people searching for us by name, or it could be people searching for us by cause. If you're an animal shelter, it could be around animal adoption. Other goals would be engagement, which could be program signups or e-newsletter signups. Increased use of services and programs is a good goal. And of course, increased membership as well. We do have donations there with a little star, because the one place people will donate through AdWords is if they already know who you are, they're trying to make a donation online, and they're searching for you by name so they can quickly find your donation page. So that's why we have a little star on that one. So to go back past that, to get into the campaign structure, how we work about this. So the account level is just literally our organization, it's our account level. The campaign we break down by goals. That could be awareness or engagement. Below that is our ad groups. In the ad groups, we kind of tightly theme things together. So in the Pathways example, we'll be looking for after-school tutoring. A different option might be a youth breakfast program. Those will be potentially under the same campaign, same regional goals, but different ad groups and different themes. The ads, we try and keep relevant to the ad groups and the keywords. And the keywords, we try and make sure it's a really tightly themed group of keywords that all match with the ad group we have in place.
So I'm going to show a quick example of a campaign that we are running actually right now at Pathways. So recently there was an announcement by the government of Ontario, so that's the province in which we live, that they were going to be offering free tuition to students that were coming from low-income households. And our organization played a part in lobbying the government for this kind of change. And we wanted to highlight, that this was available as well. So what we did was we created a campaign called News, and what a tactic that we have found useful is that when there's late breaking news that a lot of people are focusing attention on it, if you can get your keywords out there in a timely manner, there was a lot of media attention focused on the fact that Ontario was offering free tuition for underprivileged students. So we created an ad group around that, and you can see on the screen there that we had various ad groups one for Ontario Free Tuition, one focusing on people who are searching for information about the 2016 Ontario budget, as well as something called the Youth Job Connection Program, which is also in the same announcement. Breaking it down further, we created some ads where, to test out the copy that would work the best. So one is the Ontario Free Tuition. Average tuition will be free for students with family incomes under 50K. Ontario to offer grants, and so on and so forth. So this is an example of, where we were really highlighting, things that people were searching for at this relevant time and driving the traffic towards our site. And the goal of this was more of an awareness piece so that people would make the connection with our organization that, we played a part in making this happen. The one thing too about the keywords is, when you put a plus sign on each of them, that means that people would have to be searching all three of those words somewhere in the search bar. The square brackets means that that exact phrase has to be used. So only people who are searching exactly, Ontario Student Grant in that order would be presented with it. And then Ontario Student Grant, if people use that phrase and any additional keywords as well, they would pop up with that search, but everything within the quotation marks, has to also appear there. So it's also important to make sure that you are very specific in terms of the keywords that you're using so that you don't inadvertently drive unnecessary traffic and use up your grant that way. And as a result of this campaign, we got 5,000 clicks through within, I'd say, about a couple of weeks. So it was, from our measure, it was a good way to drive awareness among the general public about the work that we're doing. So Mark's going to take you through a quick workthrough.
So I think there's some value today in just showing the inside of an AdWords account, just to give you some familiarity of what we're working with. And this is the actual inside of the Pathways Canada account. My name's attached there, but I'll give you a walkthrough here. It's been pretty quick, but I'm hoping I'll show you some different tabs and just show you how to set the campaign, some targeting, set up ads, set up your ad groups, and select keywords. And this will give you, I hope, give you a bit of an insight to go back and a bit of comfort level to go back to your own account and poke around a little bit. So this one here is the top level campaigns. So if we're going to start a new campaign inside AdWords, we're just going to click the huge button that says campaign. In every level, be it campaigns, ad groups, ads, or keywords, if you're looking to add something, each page has that big red button with the corresponding plus sign and drop down. So if we're to click the campaign and add a campaign button here, it'll take us to this. Now this is a big menu of different types of campaigns available inside AdWords. The one interesting piece is that the AdWords dashboard for Google Grants looks exactly like the dashboard for regular AdWords. And what happens here is that we're giving some options on this list that we can't actually use as an AdWords grantee. We don't have access to display ads, which are little banner ads that follow us around. We don't have access to shopping ads or video ads on YouTube, but we do have access to Search Network. So we have to select a Search Network only, and that'll take us to here. In this example, I'm going to use a volunteer opportunities as the feature. And the first step is to literally type in the campaign name. I'm a big proponent of naming things literally and following things in a really linear fashion. So if I'm talking about volunteer opportunities, we're going to name the campaign exactly that. Under Search Network only, we're going to select all features, which gives us access to all the tools inside search. And the one note at the bottom there under networks, we are ticking off include search partners. We do not have access to search on YouTube or other partner websites. So past there, the note for devices, the ads will show on all eligible devices by default. That's somewhat new. In the past, we were able to segment out laptop versus mobile versus tablet. Now Google is recognizing the fact that we use all of our devices interchangeably, so it doesn't matter. The next piece here is locations, and I have my default for Canada on here because that's where we are. And if we're building a volunteer opportunities campaign for Pathways Canada, we're actually going to look around Toronto. So in this little box on the top-hand side, I've typed in the word Toronto, and Google's going to auto-populate that big list of different options for us in areas that could be related. So if you're in Florida and you typed in Naples, or Sarasota, it'll pull up a corresponding list of areas that might be relevant to you. And you can select those or exclude those as needed. The other really important piece is we have access to radius targeting. So this is fantastic for volunteering. It's also great for programs. We know at hospice, for example, if we put a pin in our map, people roughly 35 miles around us will use our services. In this example here for volunteer opportunities, and this is a fictional account we're setting up here, but I basically dropped the pin at the Rexdale location for Pathways, and we drew a map of 3 miles around there for people who might be interested in volunteering at Pathways. 3 miles might be too small. Toronto's a dense population, so we put a really tight pin on here. But it's basically up to you in deciding where is relevant. For Hospice of Waterloo Region, we do drop a pin and go 35 miles around. Some organizations go province-wide, others go either national or international, depending on who they're serving. So the thought process is more about knowing who you're serving, who's going to see value in what you're offering, and target those people. The next piece after that set, if we do have some language options and bid strategies, the language option, basically you can pick who you want to target. Again, you need to write ads that are relevant to your audience. So if you're offering English ads, you have to have ads in English. If you're offering Spanish ads, you have to write your ads in Spanish. But you do have that option to select people who might be relevant to your organization in doing that. Below that, we have our bid strategy. And again, there's a couple different pieces here. There's a way to maximize our clicks, target our search page location, target our CPA, which is cost per acquisition, et cetera, et cetera. For Google Ad Grants, I don't list my paid clients who are using actual money, but for Google Ad Grants, we do have a limit of $2 per click. So in this scenario, I usually go to the bottom, I pick manual CPC, manual cost per click, and we'll set in the bid limit of $2. That's where we're kind of stuck at the top, so we put that in and save a lot of other work. And again, just showing the location options and language options. Based on Toronto, the top 5 choices are English, French, German, Japanese, and Spanish. For this example, we're using English only. Once you've chosen your bid strategy, you literally type the default bid is $2. That's the max you're going to pay per click. It doesn't mean you're going to pay that click. If it's a low competition keyword, or there's no one else advertising in your space, you might get away with less than that. But the default max 2 per click is kind of a default setting we use. And the budget here to note, again, $10,000 per month is the overall, but it is broken down to $329 per day. So we set our budget for this one for $329 per day just to kind of maximize what we can reach. And the delivery method below, there's 2 styles, one being standard, the other being accelerated. Standard means Google business experience with our account and what people are searching for. We'll basically spread our ads over the course of the day so people see them in the morning, afternoon, and evening. If we accelerate our ads, it basically means that show all of our ads as fast as possible until our budget's gone, and we might miss people later in the day. We'll talk a bit about extensions later, but ad extensions are those pieces you see below the ads. We can put in things like our location, we can put in site links, which are deeper links into sections of a website, click to call, reviews, all that good stuff. And Google is saying that up to 15% higher click-through rates by having this information in your ad. And what it does, it basically adds context and it helps you take up more real estate in the page. So the more space you're taking, the less space for everyone else with their ads and less space for organic and then below. So it's a good thing to do. There are options in the advanced setting for scheduling. The start date, if you have a program coming up that doesn't start to the fall and you're doing, you're getting ahead in your work, or if you have a program or an event that's upcoming you don't want to promote yet, we can start the date further in the future. And similarly, if we have an end date, we want our ads to stop showing, we just plug the end date in, and on that date, it'll stop automatically. We don't have to come back into the account to turn things off. The ad scheduling piece, you are able to day by day, hour by hour, select when your ads start and stop. This is more relevant for a retail experience or a walk-in place if you're showing ads where you're expecting people to come in. For programs and services, we see people searching for our ads 24 hours a day. They search for ads at work, they search for at home, they search for the evenings. If they can't sleep at night, they're searching from their phones or desktops. So we typically leave our ads running 24/7, unless there's a really good reason not to. For example, if you have a call me now type ad and your call center only runs from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., that might be a good reason to. Otherwise, let them go 24/7 and get the most traction possible. So ad rotation delivery. Ad rotation basically means if you have more than one ad in your ad group, which we do recommend for split testing to see which works best. If you write 2 ads, one will always outperform. What ad rotation allows you to is a number of things. If you have conversions set up, you can optimize for conversions. Otherwise, you can optimize for clicks. So basically, whichever ad's working better, Google will then in turn show that ad more often. If you're planning on actively split testing and really getting in there and seeing what works better, the very bottom line, rotate indefinitely. That basically means that both ads will show with an equal weighting going forward. The most common one, though, which I recommend for people working their own accounts, is to rotate evenly. And that gives 90 days of 50-50-ish ad split. And then after the 90 days, so it has a good balance of what's happening and we know which ads will work the best. You can see some actual results. From that point forward, it says, okay, this ad performs better. We'll now show that one. After that's all said and done, we get into ad creation. And again, you have 4 types of ads at the top we can pick up. In the ad grants accounts, we get to do text ads only. And literally we fill out these 5 little boxes here. So the final URL is the actual landing page on your website that is not necessarily what's going to show up, but that's where you're pointing people to. That could include long tail UTMs with tracking code in there, and it can get kind of long and ugly sometimes. That's what people point to. You'll see the path piece is the pathways-to-education.ca. That's what Google picks up as our URL. And then we can add those other 2 pieces, volunteer/Toronto, which takes away some of the ugliness if we needed to. The 2 headlines, though, basically we have 2 boxes which we can fill up to 30 characters in each. So in this case, for volunteer, we have help make a graduation nation. And in the nonprofit world, I always recommend testing out having headline 2 being your organization name. This works really well for just an awareness piece. And if people are searching for anything related to you, it's nice to see your name. And the bottom piece is description. And that box there has up to 80 characters where you can make your case and why people should click. In this case, volunteer with pathways and make a positive difference in the lives of young people. So again, that's compelling. It's a nice ad. And if you put it all together, you get this. So Google gives you a preview. So as you run this ad, this pops up on the right-hand side. This is a mobile look, how it'll show up on mobile. And secondarily on desktop, how it'll look on desktop. You'll notice we have 2 ads here. The preview is what we've actually written, and they always have sample ads below. So if you're stuck and need ideas, you can hit sample ads to view more. It'll give you an idea of other things you could try, different verbiage you could try and test out.
So how do you write a good ad? One of the things is that when we first started doing AdWords, one of the recommendations that we found in a book was it told us to go out and buy a Cosmo magazine. So you can imagine what our colleagues thought about us. You know, we're coming back to the office with these Cosmo magazines. Like, I swear it's for work. But what they, what the book shared with us is that the way that Cosmo advertises is very similar to how AdWords works, because when people are at the checkout counter, you know, at the grocery store, they need to be able to engage people very quickly and to use that as a model when developing some of your AdWords. So that's something that we've taken to heart in terms of, you know, think about how you would market on a magazine cover. You know, a good ad is relevant, it's direct, and highlights the feature, advantage, and benefit, or FAB. So if you can nail those bullet points, then you have at its core, you know, a good direct ad. And Mark will go into a bit more detail about the ads themselves.
So a good ad again is relevant, direct, and has a feature, advantage, and benefit. And just as if you're going back over the slides, this is a breakdown here. Your final organization is just your URL where you point people. The 2 headlines are 30-character headlines. The path can be filled in if you want, then up to 80 characters on the right-hand side for description. This is an ad that I love. It's very simple. It's straightforward. It's one of my favorites that performs the best in all of my accounts. It's for the Ottawa Humane Society. Want to volunteer with animals? Check out our current positions. It's straightforward. So the feature is you get to volunteer with animals, and the advantage is that you're working with the Humane Society and you can go ahead and do that. And the benefit is that, again, check out our current positions. We have things available for you. So a good ad, again, has to be direct. So like the Cosmo magazine, it has to speak to the person who's looking at it. So if someone's searching for volunteer with animals, this ad pops up and it's like dialed into what they're looking for, which is a relevant part. It's very direct. What I've found and what we've tested over time, and it is every time we try it out, being cute in your ads and trying to insert lingo or kind of be wordy with it doesn't work. Being direct always outperforms. So if you have something, just show what it is and get to the point. Another ad that works incredibly well for us, these ads we've run for, this is 2017 now, but I've run this going back to 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 years now. This is the upcoming Lobster and Rib Fest here in Kitchener. All you can eat lobster and Rib Fest 2017, and literally it's all you can eat lobster, ribs, and pie. Get your tickets for Lobster Fest today. And even though we know people are searching for Lobster Fest and trying to find us, this ad outperforms the organic listing every time because it's kind of awesome. It just shows the feature is all you can eat lobster, and the benefit is you get to eat all you want, get your tickets. So that's just kind of some of the fun you can have, but still be very direct with it. And timely ads, this is what Jason kind of alluded to following the news cycle. If you hop on CNN and see what's working, or see what the top news story is, up here in Canada we have the CBC. If you follow the news cycle, there's always an echo online of people watching things on TV and moving across to the internet to learn more. And that can be for news, it can be for sports, it can be for anything. So if there's a news cycle to follow that's relevant to your organization, it does work. And this one's about the famine in Africa. If you search out here in Toronto, these 3 ads pop up. They're all very on point. They talk about the famine in South Sudan. They talk about your donation will be matched. So again, being timely is very important.
So in addition to having good ads, it's also important to have good landing pages. You don't want people to have a really great ad and then land on your website and then wonder, okay, why am I here, and then quickly leave. So you have to make sure that your landing pages line up well with your ads. So if someone clicks on something that says volunteer with youth, make sure that you land them on a page that makes it easy for them to learn more about volunteering and sign up quickly. Don't bait and switch. An example of that would be, volunteering with youth and then dropping them onto the front page of your website and just letting people fend for themselves. It's sort of like inviting someone to, a party. Make sure that, you did all the hard work of getting the invitations out, they've arrived. Don't make them jump through additional hoops or make them wait outside. Just take them directly to what they're looking for as much as possible. Now, for testing, research, and optimization, really the best campaigns do require preparation, but you do have to be clear about what it is that you want to test. Generally, you only test one variable in order to determine what it is that is going to really shift the ad performance. And one thing that we tested was ads relating to having people donate their birthday parties to raise funds for our organization. And this is a very quick way for us to determine what kind of copy seems to perform the best. And out of these 3 ads here, you can see here that when we were presenting people with easy and quick kids parties, birthdays that make a difference, create a party in under a minute, that had the best kind of performance because people were, we think, attracted to, an easy and quick kids party. Don't need to have a party at all. Just, raise funds for a cause. So some things that you can test variables for are the ad title, ad text, the landing page URL, time of day, and geography. What's important is that we never really particularly see huge gains when testing. Really, it's about small gains. So a 1% gain week over week, by testing and optimizing, is more likely the kind of optimizations you're going to see. You aren't going to see like a giant jump from 0 to 30% conversion. Those hardly ever happen. You also, there's a tool, Google Trends for keywords is quite handy. So, you search for stuff like gifts for mom. You may think that the spike every year is Mother's Day. That's quite frequently the guess that people have. But when you drill down to the individual year, the spike every year is actually the holiday season at the end of the year when people are madly searching and trying to figure out, okay, what should I get for mom? So it's one thing to make assumptions about what you think the results will be, but make sure you focus on the data to take a data-driven approach when forming your keywords and doing the research ahead of time. So Mark will chat a little bit about the keyword planner.
Yeah, so this was mentioned in the comments. People talk about SEO and how to use Google AdWords in SEO, and Keyword Planner is a great place to do it. So this is how the tool looks. It's under the Tools tab inside the campaigns. And when you click on this, it gives you a couple different ways to find new keywords and get search volume data. Now, the search volume data is for AdWords and ads specifically. It's not SEO data, but it is still relevant. And the point here being that you can search for a couple different ways. You know, type in new keywords or a phrase. You could type in a website, for example, or a category, and it'll give you ideas. It's a great way to kind of broaden out your search thought process and see what other words can be in there for you. It's also a great way of validating ideas. And the example here would be cats or dogs. What's more relevant to people? And what we found is we have cat adoption versus dog adoption, that dog adoption actually outranks cat adoption. Apparently dog lovers are more actively searching for puppies than cat lovers are looking for kittens. But it is a great way to kind of hop in here and see what's relevant for you. Now that's very simplistic, but it could be different ways to slice down what dog adoption looks like. So if you have a program, doesn't mean, there's different ways of looking at it. And dog adoption could look like dogs for sale, adopt a dog, dog rescue, puppies for sale. If you plug your own programs in there, it'll give you these different slices and different ideas for how you can advertise your programs.
And one of the things that we do too with AdWords is we use it to test copy and to figure out, what would people be more likely to engage with. So sometimes we'd use AdWords to test print copy. One campaign that we did was around people donating their air miles or kind of points. In Canada, we have a plan called Aeroplan. And we went on the assumption first, maybe people will just donate their points out of the goodness of their hearts. That didn't perform very well. It had 0.35% kind of conversion rate. And then when we addressed much more direct need and inform people, hey, you don't have enough miles to go on a trip, why don't you donate them to our organization instead? We saw a tripling of the conversion rate. And so, that helps us better understand a bit of the thought process around, what motivates people to donate their miles. It's not just, randomly thinking one day, I want to donate my miles to a charity, but it's, realizing that, oh, I can't use them. What am I going to do with them? Okay, well, I can put them towards a good cause, which is it's a different approach.
So I'll go through ad extensions really quickly. And this is an ad I pulled from Hospice, and it has a number of extensions here. So the one showing here, the address extension, obviously 298 Lawrence, it has our phone call and also some business extensions. Probably the most important one, so this is a phone number. So again, the first one we're showing here is that you are able to show your phone number. This is a kind of organization by organization thought process. Do you want your phone number? It's similar to answer it. If it's not, maybe you just point them to the website. But if you have your phone number on mobile, you can do click to call. And this ad shows up for World Vision. If you search for them by name and you tap that little gray button with your thumb on your phone, it dials straight to them. So it's a fantastic way to help people, if they're on their phone, get a hold of you immediately. Location, again, likewise, we have to put into consideration, do you want people showing up at your physical address? Canadian Feed the Children does, so they put their address in Toronto in the ad. If for some reason you're not a walk-in or you don't want people at your door, probably keep that out. The more important ones are probably site links, and this helps you add context and relevance to your ad. So in this example, the site links below are events, about us, programs, and resources. We know when people are searching for Capacity Canada by name, those are the 4 pages they tend to head to. So what we've done is basically help them cheat the line, and when they search for our ad, they can click on those ad site links and go straight to those internal pages instead of going to the home page and navigating the menu. Again, it's all about user experience and making things as easy as possible for them. One really quick note, this is a whole different presentation at a whole different time about Google Analytics. Plug it in. Google Analytics is a very powerful tool, and a common mistake or a common omission we see is that people forget to connect analytics and AdWords. And if you do plug them in, what happens is you can take your AdWords piece and reporting, which is about how people get to your website, and tie it into analytics, which shows what happens once they get to your website. So a really powerful tool when connected.
So how do you keep everything sustainable? I mean, one thing is time is the most basic and essential resource. Generally, when we started out, we were doing a couple of hours a week to start. But the thing is, AdWords can be a time suck. If you don't limit the amount of time you spend on it, it's easy to blow like an entire day on it every week. So you do need to carefully manage your time around it. But when you're starting out, a couple of weeks to just manage the campaigns, keep an eye on things is about what you could reasonably budget. If you want to take a bootstrap approach to it, most often recommend across the board is The Ultimate Guide to Google AdWords by Perry Marshall. It's about $15 on Amazon, and it's a fantastic resource guide and one that we learned a lot from. And also connecting with a peer group online. You have a peer group around you right now, which is great. But also, I would be remiss if I didn't make a plug for N10 as well, where you can swap tips, or if you ever need advice on any of the AdWords pieces. If you have a bit of a higher budget to go with, there's also classes that are offered. Generally speaking, I've seen these classes offered at local colleges, as well as specialty AdWords training programs, and they can go up all the way up to $2,500 for comprehensive AdWords and analytics training. So, we don't have that kind of budget in our organization. So, Mark and I, we took the bootstrap approach with the Guide to Google AdWords and just did a lot of online reading and things. But, we do want to make people aware that there are other options available if you do have the budgetary resources available. One of the big questions that we often get is, training internally versus a vendor. And the thing is, there are pros and cons to each, and we've listed them here. On the internal side, it's great that you build in-house capacity, but the thing is, it will cost you time. And, sometimes people aren't always going to be interested in doing that. AdWords is not the most necessarily exciting thing in the world, but it is useful for sure. So by going to a vendor, the benefits there are you can get started quickly. If you're not satisfied with your vendor, generally you can replace them fairly quickly. You automatically are hiring an expert, but it will cost you money. So I've been in organizations where I've been on both ends in terms of, I have been that internal person, but I've also been in organization pathways right now where the amount of work that it takes to maintain the account is gets to be quite a bit. So you've hired a vendor. Excuse me. So the one thing to keep in mind is not to be a super villain, and Google AdWords has very specific requirements to not be pushing things that are not central to your mission in your AdWords account. And there have been some instances of nonprofits that have tried to push maybe arm's length for-profit type things, and what ends up happening is that it just kind of results in a poorer experience for everyone else, and that more rules that have to be put in place to take into account these things. So AdWords is a fantastic resource, but make sure you read through the terms and conditions carefully and abide by all the guidelines that are set out by Google. And at the end of the day, you can't go wrong if you are simply just serving the organization and remaining mission-centric, and keeping that in mind as you're creating ads and deploying your campaigns.
So we've talked a lot today about reading and learning and ongoing, keeping up to date with things. And these are my 5 favorite blogs to kind of go for things that are digital marketing, AdWords, landing pages, etc. So AdWords.blogspot.com is Google's blog for AdWords. That's where you find all the latest news, best practices, if they have announcements coming up for new products or things changing. That's where they plop it. Search Engine Land is fantastic, as is WordStream. Both are about SEO and all things search engine marketing, etc. Multiple blog posts per day, and something you can go back regularly and learn from. Unbounce has a good blog. They're more about landing pages and landing page experience. So if we're bringing people to our pages, what do our pages have to look like to help convert? And PPC Hero is pay-per-click hero, which again is just about best practices for search engine marketing.
So in terms of what you should be doing week to week, on a weekly basis, check for alerts, check to see if you have any ads that have been disapproved, check your keywords and any broken URLs. on a monthly basis, what you can do is review your budgets to make sure they're all on track, review any testing you're doing, make any modifications there. You want to pause low-performing ads, because if you have too many low-performing ads, it will drag down the rest of your account and remove low-performing keywords. So it's sort of like making sure that you're trimming out the fat from your campaign that's just not performing. On a quarterly basis, review trends, review the impressions and clicks, the search term reports, as well as permissions to the account in case there have been any staffing changes at your organization. Now, the harsh reality and a silver lining to it is that Google is always changing. We are constantly seeing changes to the AdWords interface, but that's also one of the kind of things that keeps everything exciting. That we are always having to constantly learn about how to stay on top of everything. And our advice for that is to deal with it because there isn't really any way around it. You just sort of have to bash through it, the platform's always changing and evolving, and that's what we've had to do. In terms of taking it to the next level, for paid advertising, Mark will speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so once you've kind of mastered Google for nonprofits, and the beauty of that is it's a bit of a sandbox or a playground for you to test out and things that work. If you were to hop into a paid account as a for-profit, or decide you want to start spending your own money, it's really easy to spend a lot of money fast and learn hard lessons about cost per click marketing. So where it does work though sometimes is that if you're in a competitive space, I know Jason and I, when we first started out, we worked for an organization that offered credit counseling as one of the programs. We couldn't make any headway because people in the credit counseling, bankruptcy space, payday loans were willing to spend $15 to $25 per click. We just couldn't compete. So there's a situation where you need to bid over $2. Having a second paid account is where you can do that. The other piece it allows you to do is display advertising. So that's little banner ads that you can put out. That's targeting people who are geographically interested or by topic interested in what you're offering. It's a way to reach a broader audience, probably not as pointed and as targeted as search on AdWords, but display works. And retargeting. So retargeting is, or remarketing as Google calls it, is when you visit a website and then you see ads to that website follow you around for the next 30, 60, or 90 days. And that's why I find it where my wife's been shopping, because she'll hop on one website, I'll log on the next day, and I'll see exactly what website she's visited. So retargeting is a great way if you have maybe a longer funnel to conversion, potentially for donors. So if people have come to your website, they've shown interest in your donation page, you can show them ads seasonally about donation or about your programs, whatever it is. But it's worth money, it's worth more to you because you already know they're interested in who you are. And the last piece would be YouTube ads. So if you want to promote some video or try some new things out, you can't do that in the Google Grants program, but with paid advertising, you get your ads up on YouTube as well.
So just bringing it back to managing expectations, once again, as you are going through AdWords, at the end of the day, it isn't to max out your 10K grant. It's to serve your organization and to connect people with what is kind of your core mission or goal. So make sure that you don't focus too hard on spending the 10K. It's not many of the organizations that use Google Ad Grants never even come close to spending the full 10K. And also always keep in mind that AdWords, with the exception that Mark mentioned earlier, it does not always directly result in donations. So it will definitely help drive traffic to your website, but make sure that you still have to provide a good user experience after they arrive and be very clear about what your goals are. Now, the challenge I would put out to all of you is that we're going back to the beginning of our presentation. There are lots of people that are looking for help online. So people searching for things like, what to do if a friend is being bullied, is suicidal, in an abusive relationship, is depressed. That there are many organizations that provide really helpful services to deal with all these things and more. And one of the great things is that when you can even get in and set up your AdWords on a very basic level, you can help get in front of these people that are searching for these really important pressing issues that they are being confronted with. So it's when we first started doing AdWords, if we're completely honest, it could be quite a frustrating experience at times. But it's one of those things that is quite rewarding. It is worth sticking with it because it helps you address these very direct challenges that surround us on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's what is really rewarding about working in the nonprofit sector and being in the digital space, that we can help people kind of 24/7 when you have figured out some of the AdWords pieces, that someone could be searching at 3 a.m. and still find that potential ads that drives them to your website to get connected with the help that they need. So on that note, I just want to thank everyone, and from here we'll take some questions.